Alright, this is going to be a test of the very first attack sequence in StarCaster. To give you an idea of how I've got this set up, I've got my test character here, and I picked up a quick animation set from the asset store for Oriental Sword type of animations, just to give him some kind of a melee attack. He has an ability component, and here you can set his ability list. This will be driven by game values and time. You can see he's got a default attack, which is a blueprintable U-object type of class right here. I could give him any number of these. I can just script on an individual basis. We'll open it up right here. And so on ability activated is the main driving event for these types of abilities. It's got some targeting logic built in just for testing purposes. It's just programmed to get the crab. It will designate it as the selected target, and then it will order the owning character to move to that target, and then play a standard attack animation, which is set as part of the battle animator, which is a custom class that I created specifically for driving battle animations in this game. So to give you an idea of what that does, I'm going to open up the character's Anim blueprint. And the thing is, Anim blueprints, if I try to make one, where is Anim blueprint? Here it is. If I try to make one based off Anim Instance, and I try to make it like generic without picking a skeleton, yeah, no, nothing doing. I have to pick a skeleton. Otherwise, it will not let me make one. At the C++ level, you can extend Anim Instance as a code class, so to speak, and create your own offshoots of Anim Instance that are generic. In this case, I created Battle Anim Instance. And what that gives me is a list of pre-canned battle animations, as well as a handful of handy references that are set on construction or on begin play. So I've got references to the battle character. I've got the movement velocity, which is set at a C++ code level, so I don't have to program that into every single character myself. And then I have all of these animations kind of set up like this, and a number of, excuse me, hiccups. And then a number of handy functions that supplement, let's see, here we go, battle animations, that supplement the existing animation calls. So standard animation lets me just pick any of the basic combat animation. And that's all I have to do is fill in that list and hit the play button, and it's all contained right inside of here. And what it does is it plays these as what they call a dynamic anim montage, which is an animation montage that's created on the spot and filled in with the desired animation. Ideally, that should fire off the events, but I don't think it's actually firing this event off. That might be something that I screwed up at the code level or something else. But you get the idea. Once the ability gets activated, it will run the code that causes it to move to the target and then play the animation. And that's all I was looking for this to do, because that is the basics of what every attack is going to be built out of. Now, different attacks might have different types of variables set up. They will certainly have different targeting logic, depending on whether it's like a radial attack or something that causes the character to move down a line or something like that. Some of them might be individual targeting. Some of them might require you to do lock-on to multiple targets. There are many possibilities for how this can work out. I need to create the targeting system yet, but the gist of it is that activating an ability has to be something generic. And then the logic that it runs through in order to acquire targets is something that is specific to that ability. Probably this will branch off into multiple templated abilities for like radial attack and line attack and single target and that kind of thing. But we shall see how that ends up working out. In the meantime, let's actually go ahead and test this guy. In the level blueprint, you'll see on begin play, I set up the character's AI controller, which I have to do. I need to set up the AI controller for any battle character. Basically, the UI's job is going to be to send orders to AI controllers to do this stuff. I'm going to delay for 3 seconds. I'm going to print using attack, and then I'm going to use the default attack. Let's go. And off he goes. And there you have it, the very first attack of the game. The crab didn't react because obviously he didn't. I mean, look at him. He's so majestic and large. Ugh. And floating like 2 or 3 feet above the ground. Obviously, I've got a lot of polishing to do. There isn't a damage system yet. There isn't a whole lot going on other than, hey, check it out, I have the ability to choreograph these movements and attacks. But that was the gist of what I needed to set up. At some point, you have to get something that basic working before you can build it up into something that looks and feels fancy with visual effects and things. Like, obviously, I gotta get a sword in this guy's hand. You know, I've gotta get him to react. I've got to compute damage. At some point, I actually have to be doing real turn control instead of just firing one-off attacks. But that is the core interaction that it all has to be built around, is order it to attack and then have it run up and attack something. There will be a lot more structure as time goes on, and there's more structure already in place that just hasn't been tested yet. I've got a battle controller of sorts, a turn controller, set up, but there's quite a lot of boilerplate that has to go on before it's anything usable. The really interesting issue with building this type of game, this JRPG type of game, is that all of the systems for a battle are so comprehensively interdependent on each other. You know, there's almost so many circular dependencies going on that basically no single feature of it is done until the entire system is done, because all of them are meaningless outside of the context of a working battle. There might be, I might be messing up on my code design a little bit. I might be, working from a lack of experience with this a little bit, or maybe I'm overshooting, because the goal here is for this arena to be something you can move around, so you can tell the character maneuver and then send them over here, and they'll have actual movement limitations set up, and positioning is going to take effect, so it'll be kind of 50-50 tactical RPG and JRPG, and that is bringing with it all sorts of complications, in that I've got to integrate the navigation system and whatnot. But yeah, the turn controller has to be there to give the characters orders. The ability system has to be there for them to be able to run an attack, for them to be able to maneuver. They need a movement system. For the abilities to exist in a context where I can actually grab them and tell the character to use one, they need to have an ability manager attached to them that gives them like a list. It kind of keeps piling up as far as tasks you need to complete in order to have a working battle system, such that you can be working on this for quite a few weeks before you've got something really 100% functional. I think I am on the first week of the battle system so far, and you can see all the stuff I had to do in terms of the animation system and in terms of the ability system, and that's not even like 100% of the ability system boilerplate. There is still yet more that I have to do in order to make it resource efficient to fetch abilities. What else? The stat system. For abilities to be able to get numbers, there needs to be a stat system. There needs to be a way of gathering particular stats from the character. Whew boy! For this reason, you should paper prototype your RPG systems before you start building them, because that'll give you a good idea of what direction to work in terms of information architecture, and you kind of want to fail at that stuff early. With this, I'm fairly confident in the systems design that I've come up with, kind of off camera. It is all technical design that I'm trying to solve in terms of getting it to be very presentable, very polished, and to be able to handle maneuvering around this arena, so to speak. What it'll ideally end up looking like is sort of like Skies of Arcadia, but with a little bit more freedom as to how you maneuver around a battle arena. What might end up happening, and this is a loose suggestion at this point, what I could end up doing with this is I might break it out of the arena battle screen entirely and just have this all work in the context of the game world, like that you use for exploration, because there is no reason that the nav mesh can't exist in the game world, and it will exist in the game world. There will be navigable areas for monsters to roam around in order to, at the very least, trigger these battles. But what you might be seeing is something that feels a little bit more like Chrono Trigger than like anything else, like a next-gen version of Chrono Trigger, because there's, functionally no reason I can't do this. And as I'm working on this, it might even make my job... It'll make my job a little more complicated in some respects in terms of how I start and stop a battle, but it'll also make my job less complicated in some respects, because then I don't have to do level streaming to bring in a separate arena and background. And I don't have to do all this crazy boilerplate code to change the player's perspective over here and stream out the level wherever it is over there, and all this manner of stuff that has to go on in the background in order to change you over to this screen. In Unity, I would have just loaded it as a loaded level, because loading levels is pretty quick when you get down to something that's this limited size. And I have a lot of control in Unity over what kind of stuff I can do in the background. I've actually got a similar degree of control here, but in terms of carrying over environment data, this is the level that I'm in, load this background, and so on and so forth. In terms of being able to set up procedural arena generation, Unity is actually better equipped for that kind of thing. Like in terms of headaches that I'm looking to save myself, setting up the start positions is something that I'm not relishing to do. Like, I'm not really looking forward to the idea of having to pick a random location in this arena to set this enemy crab down, when I could just have him wandering around in the environment, and then if the conditions are right per his sensor component, start a battle, drop an arena down in the middle of this, in between him and the player, set up a battle radius. If the player moves outside of his battle radius, then they escape. And then maybe there is a period of time where he's alert and chasing them. Like that AI component to this, where the character could be alert and chasing them, is something that has to be in this already. I could condense it all into the one character here. Now, what could be a little bit tricky is the need for reinforcements, right? The need for this guy to represent not just himself, but maybe like 2 or 3 small enemy crabs that are not necessarily wandering around with him, right? If I take a very abstract approach to this, which is a typical thing in JRPGs, maybe I'll have them wander around with him in the environment or something like that. I don't know, but that seems like that'd run into a lot more programming that has to get done in order to make that behavior work out. So maybe like there is some placement logic or some transition in logic for reinforcement enemies that are part of the encounter data for this enemy. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking aloud to myself here about problems that I don't yet have to solve. This is kind of cool that he's got a camera set up and I can see his claws. Like I could see myself making like a short little silly game where you play as the crab or something and have the giant claws in this first person view. That might even be like I don't know if that's the foundation for Evolve, but somebody might have looked at a camera perspective like this and said, you know what, we could make a game about playing a giant monster and come up with Evolve. Probably someone's going to correct me on that if I put that out there, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the kind of logic. Anyway, I'm done rambling and musing to myself. Just for kicks, let's play the attack one more time. Yeah, really nothing all that fancy. But that is where everything has to start, is with a character just running up and taking a swing at an enemy. Alright, that'll conclude this video. I will catch you guys later. Mike out.